Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar. Now, if you're out there and you've started a business and you don't know where to take it from here, don't worry, there's help available. Sometimes you need to consult with somebody to figure out what those next steps are to scale. And my guest today is Scott Ritzheimer. He is part of Scale Architect, and he absolutely is one of those individuals that could help you on your journey. Now, Scott, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, Zach, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I always tell folks a podcast completely changed the trajectory of my business and my life. And so I'm always got this little eager anticipation that hopefully, we'll get to do that for somebody listening today.
Well, absolutely. Now, I would love to hear that. But before we get there, tell me a little bit about your journey. I mean, was it always on your heart to be an entrepreneur and to get into this space? Or what was your projection as you got into the business or career world?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, no, not at all. I had gone to ministry school, I was in ministry,
Okay.
and needed a job to pay the bills. It was effectively what it was. So I got a job at a little local company with a guy who I met through the church, and it was a small business here in Atlanta, Georgia. And 3 months after I started, he sold it on an owner finance deal. The new owners kept us on, and then systematically but unintentionally destroyed the business. No bad guys in the story. Everyone wanted it to work, and nobody could get it to work. My business school, I ended up going to business school later, but I learned more in that year and a half of just watching it go wrong than I did, hands down, at business school. It's one of those things. You probably have a couple of these kind of events or seasons in life that you would never ask for them, but you wouldn't trade what you got out of it for the world. It was one of those for me. And during the course of what was really a very painful process, even for me, kind of in the low man on the totem pole in the company, just watching something that we all wanted to succeed, something that we all loved fail was really brutal. But in that, I started to fall in love with what it could be. With learning from the mistakes that were being made, seeing a different way of doing it, and so long story short, the friend of mine who was the original owner got the company back, asked me to come on with him when he did and relaunch it. Now, this is September 2008, not a great time to start a business. I think stocks fell like 32% or something in the first 6 months that we were in business. So it was a really hard time, but it was also really fun. We were just making it up as we go, just doing the whole thing. And again, my love and passion for business just grew more and more and more through that process. It wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a really fun season.
Yeah, no, I've definitely been there in those seasons where you cannot really desire or want to have that occurring in your life. But at the same time, when you reflect back upon it, you can see the lessons learned as you went through that period of time, and just the faith that you had to have to get through that, to make it to the other side. And then when you talk about that stage at which you came back on board with your friend to be able to go during a recession into another time of just building and growing and working on getting this back to where it needed to be. So how did that go for you guys? I mean, really, that is at a time when there were a lot of business failures. What type of business was it also, by the way? And where did it take you ultimately from there?
We helped, interestingly enough, we helped nonprofits and for-profits launch. So we were part of this launch of this whole influx of new businesses. One of the things that happens in down economies is that entrepreneurship goes through the roof. And a lot of it's by default, some of it's by design. It's the worst possible time to be an entrepreneur. Like, let's not think of that wrong. The failure rate, some folks will report the failure rate of those businesses climbs to nearly 95%. So it's not an effective strategy, but it's a real trend. It's a real pattern, happens every big recession. And what you see coming out of it, though, is that 5% that makes it, there's just something established in them. I know this was the case for us. I actually read an article, I think it was HBR, I can't remember who it was, but they talked about what are now unicorns, right? That are going public, and massive stock offerings. Many of them started in 07, 08. and they were born out of the challenge of this time. And it establishes a strength, a resilience inside of the organization. And you see it in some of those big companies, but in our own little way, we saw it in ours. And it actually started what was an extended and exceptional growth phase. I mean, we were doing high double-digit growth, and then kind of tapered down to strong double-digit growth for over a decade.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't easy. We didn't get it all right. I messed up so many things. I mean, I was young in mid-20s at this time, so it was not pretty.
Yeah.
The first executive team meeting I was ever in, I was supposed to lead. I had no idea what to do. I just knew we needed a meeting, so let's figure it out. It was so embarrassing. It was terrible. So we made lots of mistakes. We learned from some of them, at least. And overall, it was pretty good. Not that everything was easy, but it was a pretty good season.
Yeah.
Always being stretched as a leader. And what happened was, as a leader, there are these moments where you just kind of feel blindsided. I never saw that coming, right? I never thought about the first time I was going to have to fire a friend. I never thought about what it actually meant to make a leadership team meeting. I never thought about what I'd have to do if someone stole from the company, or I never thought about what I'd do if one of our major revenue streams started to die. There are these big things that happen, and those are examples not of specific instances, but of the pattern that happens. And what you'll find, and any entrepreneur who's listening to this will attest to it, entrepreneurship is anything but static. You don't just show up the same way as a founder every single day. You have to change and adapt over time. And I didn't know how to do that. We're all familiar with Marshall Goldsmith's "What got you here won't get you there," which is a great concept. But every time I hear it, I'm like, well, then what was the thing that got me here? What's the thing that's going to get there? And for founders, what I've found, and when we helped start, it was around 17, 18,000 organizations during this stretch when I was at the company. So I saw it a lot. And what I started to recognize is that there are patterns that define what will get you here and what will get you there. There are these kind of set but invisible moments that happen where founders shift from one stage in their journey to another. And it's similar to a lot of other leadership journeys. You'll see this kind of pattern show up everywhere. But it's very different from those in that there's nothing to signify that a stage has changed. You wake up as a founder one day and you're in a different stage, and the sky is still blue. You still have people on your team. You still have to make money. It's there aren't these big moments for an employee, right? Like myself, when early on, I got a new title when the stage changed, right? I went from being a frontline person to a manager. And that's a hard transition to make. There's an entire industry of coaches who are dedicated to just helping people make that leap.
Yep.
It's only one of the 7 transitions for a founder, but for an employee, it's easy to recognize that the game has changed because I have a new title, I have a new position, I've got a team now. But when does that moment happen for founders? Because they have to make the same transition, but when does it happen? Does it happen when you hire your first employee or your 15th? And so because there's never a title change, there's never an external factor that validates why what got you here won't get you there. What happens for founders, and this happened to me, is we keep running the plays that worked. And we keep running them until they necessarily thrust us into the next stage. And then we find out they don't work anymore. But there's no, why? Why don't they work anymore? It feels like a mystery, but it's not. It's actually a set pattern that we all go through.
Yeah. Now, when you have started or helped to begin 17 to 18,000 companies, you definitely have lessons learned along that path that you could observe. And I imagine that, just like you said, that time in which you were working for the company, as you went through that transition to that new ownership and then saw the company fail, you learned so much more in that time period than you might have in business school. I imagine the same would go with that process of working with all these different companies over time and seeing their growth and their ability to scale and to get beyond that. So 7 different stages that you mentioned that an owner goes through. Now, for some of us that don't know that or don't have that experience as an owner, enlighten us a little bit about some of those stages that an owner will go through.
Yeah, there are 7 of them, and so like plowing through all of that in a podcast environment, it's like trying to
Yes.
eat, a 17-course meal when you just woke up. It's
Right.
doable, but it's not necessarily how you want to start your day. So
Yeah.
what I like to do, I like to dive into right in the middle of this.
Perfect.
So these are what I call stages 3, 4, and 5. And I want to set the stage here, a little bit of pun intended. I want to set some context for why this matters. How's this showing up?
Yep.
So let's say it's football, and our team is down by 4. It's the situation. You're down by 4. There's a couple of seconds left on the clock. You have the ball. You got a couple yards to go to get into the end zone. If you get in, you win. If you don't get in, you lose. It's that simple. Wouldn't it be nice if business was this way, right?
Right.
So it's that simple, right? We get in, and it all comes down to this. So we know exactly the play. We've run it 1,000 times. We've practiced it 10,000 times. It's a fake to the running back and then a toss to your star wide receiver in the end zone. Call the play. Everybody lines up. And it strikes you that it's a little different this time because instead of being one of the players on the field, you're a coach on the sideline. And you've got to hope and pray that you've trained them enough, you've taught them enough, you've called the right play, and you have to trust that they'll execute. All right, so what happens? Ball's high, quarterback gets it, fakes to the running back, and it works, right? Everyone collapses on the hole, the defense bites, and it's just perfection. It's everything you could hope for. And as you look, you kind of pan to the left to look at the wide receiver, and instead of running their route, they got the play wrong and they're blocking. So without a moment's hesitation, right? It's nanoseconds. What do? You take off, right? And just start running down the sideline. The headset goes flying, clipboard hits one of the assistant coaches, right? And you're like, they're going to study the physics on this for years because no one knows how you made it this far, this fast, but you get all the way down to the end zone to where your wide receiver is supposed to be. And at the last second, reach out, jump on the field, keep your toes in and make the diving catch. Right? The thing that you've done over your entire career that has just given you accolades and uproar and just celebration. And this time what happens? Silence. 80,000 people, you could hear a pin drop. Everyone's, what just happened? What would have been the talk of the town, right? What would have made you the hero saving the day is not only a penalty, right? It's not only inappropriate, it actually sealed the loss for your team. It guaranteed that you would lose. And so, no one's saying anything. Your team's just kind of shaking your head in shame. The only thing that you see are men in black and white stripes running your way. And it's just, this is bad, right? Something has gone wrong here. And so in the world of professional football, we've never seen this, right? Especially when it's on the line there. You're not going to see a coach run onto the field. It's like 5 different penalties. It wouldn't work if they did. But working with founders, helping start that many organizations alongside founders, I can tell you, we do it every single day inside our business. We cross over that boundary line. We try to save the day, doing things that we've done in the past, that worked in the past, that were wonderful and appropriate and necessary in the past, but are now a penalty, a violation. What would have been the celebration of your team is now a frustration for your greatest players. And so what we have to do is we have to start to understand what our role is. And that's really hard for founders because what's the title on your first business card, right? Before you've even started the business, it's founder and CEO, right? Founder and CEO. And those two are completely different functions. And you won't actually be CEO until stage 5 of the process. That means that there are 4 monumental, distinct shifts that need to happen from the day you start thinking about starting your business to when you actually become a CEO. It's inappropriate for you to be a real CEO before that time. And what we have to recognize is what those stages are, what those roles are. So in the model, in the book, what I've done is I've kind of taken this fictional story about a sports team. And it's not a fable, it's not that kind of a thing, but I use it to illustrate what is otherwise an invisible process.
Yeah.
And so for each of the stages, I identify a position in a team, in a team hierarchy that kind of follows that from, a trainee on the sideline to a Hall of Famer. And again, right in the middle of this is this shift where we are moving from star player to captain on the field, right? Where it's not just about you getting the ball and running with it. You've got to get 11 other people moving in the same direction, right? Not 11 or 10 others, not 10 literally, but you've got to start to have success through others while you're still in the game, right? You are player coaching it. You are leading and doing in real time. And so that's one of the biggest transitions. It's a hard one to make for founders because you deal with a lot of founders too. Tell me how many of them started their business to manage other people?
No, not very many. Usually
None.
it's
It's like
yeah, exactly.
they started their business to not manage other people.
Right.
And so what you'll find, and this isn't universally true, but it's pretty much there all the time, that what it takes to get through that early stage as a founder, to be the star player, to go out on your own and take these ridiculous risks. Not that we should take ridiculous risks, but when you look at something that fails 8 out of 10 times, it's kind of ridiculous just to start with. So the very things that make that happen tend to correlate with the inability to naturally step into a manager role. And so we get this thing in the third stage, I call it a reluctant manager, because they start to realize, yes, I have to get all these people moving. Yeah, they do need to be managed. It takes a while to get to that point, right? So there's some understanding that has to get there. They do have to be managed. They don't want to be managed like me. But the frustration that we wake up with every single morning is, what's wrong with these people, right? Like what is wrong with these people? That is that's the question that haunts every reluctant manager. And it would be nice if it was as simple as just going out and hiring a manager. And while that is one of the strategies for that stage, it's not the first step, because what's going to happen, and Michael Gerber in his book E-Myth talks about this a lot, but if you never learn to manage, how are you going to hold someone else accountable for managing? Right? If you never learn just the basic skills, you don't have to be the best manager in the world. You probably never will be, but there's an essential skill set that's needed, a limited essential skill set. And if you can learn to step into that as a captain on the field, and then you can learn how to find that in someone else and motivate them to manage at least a bulk of your team alongside you. That's what sets the stage to actually start getting off the field, right? You don't have to play offense and defense. You don't have to do sales and fulfillment. You can start to divide and conquer, if you will. And it sets the stage for your transition into stage 4. Now, I want to pause here for a second, because we like to think of the stages as kind of up and to the right, right? If I'm going through my journey as a founder and I'm doing it right, it's going to get better and more wonderful, right? And when you start off the whole thing with pina coladas on the beach, which is absolutely false, it just seems like it's going to be awesome. That's not the way it works. In fact, the transition from stage 3 to stage 4, even though your business is growing, even though you're making more money usually than ever before, even though you look super successful, even though you're less responsible for doing the stuff on the field, it is a hard stage to be in. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I've got other people who can, do this for me or do that for me. I've got players on the field who are getting hit instead of me. When it all comes down to it and it's not going well, and you're still reliant on other people to carry the ball because you can't go in and save the day anymore. Even if you try, there's just not enough of you to go around. It feels really risky. It feels out of control. It feels like we're maxed on our capacity as leaders. And what we start doing when we get to this stage 4, I call it the disillusioned leader, because we start asking the question, is this it? Like, is this as far as I can go? Is this as big a company as I can create? Is this as good a leader as I can ever be? Is this really what creating a business is? Now I'm holding hands and babysitting and doing people problems all the time, and we're less profitable than we've been in a while. Like, what's going on? That is a natural stage of the process. It is a stage that every successful founder I've seen has gone through this stage, and I've seen a lot. And again, I call it the disillusioned leader stage. And it's one of those real big challenges. It feels like we're singled out. It feels like we're the only one experiencing this. It feels like we're the only one who can't figure it out. But the truth is, if you're feeling that way, you're not alone at all. Like I said earlier, it's something that every single person goes through.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that just resonates. I've been in that position myself, and I feel like that's something that really people need to hear. They need to realize that that's a stage that we're going through, and we get to that point where we're allowing others to take the lead, but yet still have that responsibility for any of the failures. So, yeah. Well, tell us then. So you mentioned that stage 4. So now we're moving into stage 4 and then working into the stage 5. If you want to just preface that a little bit, I know we can't get into all 7 of the stages, but
stage 5
let's leave with a little bit more hope.
Stage, yes, and that's what we have to do. And I intentionally stopped here because it feels like we stop here, right? For many founders, this feels like some glass ceiling that we just can't hit through. It feels like this invisible wall, and we're tired of getting our nose smashed in, right? You've seen like the YouTube videos about people running into glass. That's what it feels like. And it's just like you get up and you do it again, and you get up and you do it again. And just when you think you got it figured out, you open the door and bam, there's a screen too. It's just like, what is going on? And what happens at this stage are 2 really bad conversations. Now, I can't say they're bad conversations, but they are misdirected in the way that we have them. The first one is we start feeling like we've hit our leadership limit, and maybe we need to go hire a professional CEO. We need to hand it off to someone else to do this for us because we can't make the leap. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's premature. In fact, you're going to do it a stage later, but if you try and do it now, same thing I talked about with the manager beforehand, if you don't learn to make this leap to becoming what I call the chief executive, if you don't learn to really step into that CEO title, there's 2 things that are going to happen. One, you're going to have false starts. You're going to bring people in, they're going to let you down. You're going to bring people in, they're going to let you down. You're going to bring people in and you feel completely sidelined, or they're going to take your business somewhere else. It's a high risk situation, and it's not necessary. It's not a necessary risk. Second thing that's going to happen is you will rob yourself of what I think is the best stage for visionaries, is stage 5. And so you don't want to get into this, do I need to hire a professional CEO thing? If you're in that stage, if you're feeling that way, if you haven't solved for what it means to be a CEO in your company, then you're not ready to do that, even if you should do that. So that's the first conversation. The second conversation is related, and it's, should I sell, right? Or should I just scale back? And we're kind of left with like 2 bad options, right? We founders, what's different for founders than a lot of other business owners, especially those who buy in or inherit their company, is that for founders, it's much more a part of them, right? It's a deeply personal decision to sell a business that you founded. It's still important. It's still material if it was your mom's business or your dad's business. It's still important if you owned it, but it's just different for founders. And so there's almost, especially at this stage, if you leave for this reason, it's kind of an admission of defeat. I don't think it needs to be that way. There are great reasons to leave at this stage, but more often than not, it's the wrong conversation. It's the wrong direction. The right thing to do is, what changes would I have to make to build a saleable company? Now, that's a great question to ask at this stage. But all of that to say, we end up asking the wrong questions. We end up feeling depressed and beat down. And there's a story I like to tell, has nothing to do with business, but to just kind of illustrate what's going on in this stage. So we've got 3 kids. At the time, I think they were like 10, 8, and 0, or 9, 7, and 1, something like that. So young, but like two different needs basically. And it was really tough to find a babysitter. And so my wife and I just didn't get out much. We didn't have a whole lot of date nights. It was, our families both live out of town. And so we decided, hey, it's happening. We're going on date night. And so in our massively romantic selves, we decide we're going to do dinner and a movie, right? The suburban dream. And so we go have dinner. We go to a movie. We watch, it was Top Gun Maverick, right? The new Top Gun movie. It's not new anymore, but we're watching it. It's great. Tom Cruise is having just a really rough time, and I'm sitting there watching the movie and it's like cool, all the nostalgia. But when I'm looking at it thinking like everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. He's been fired like 3 times. He's having relational conflicts with the son of his wingman who died, and it's hard. And they're having all kinds of stuff. He still doesn't have the girl at this point, right? She's still giving him the cold shoulder. His job has passed him by. The world has passed him by. He's irrelevant. You go a little further in, he's shot down, right? Now he's behind enemy lines, getting chased by a helicopter. And it's just everything that can go wrong has gone wrong for Tom. And what happens is we get the SOS call from the babysitter. Now, everyone was healthy. No one was hurt or anything, but she's just like, this is not working, right? Like, you've got to come, relieve me. And so I had to leave with about 15, 20 minutes of Top Gun Maverick left. I didn't see the ending of the movie. And again, it's downright depressing. If that's the ending, right. It's pretty rough. And so I had no idea. You kind of know because it's the same pattern. It's actually the same pattern that happens for founders. That's why I'm telling the story. But it's something. It's going to turn around. It's going to all be worth it. He's going to get the girl. He's going to repair the relationship. They're going to complete the mission. But when you're down in that moment, it seems like all hope is lost. And if founders start to have those conversations like, I need to get a professional CEO, or I need to sell my business, or I need to take a step back, it's like Tom checking out, right? 15 minutes before the end of the movie. You are robbing yourself of this single greatest transformation of the entire journey. You're robbing yourself of the vast majority of the joy and experience that you've worked so hard to achieve. And so what has to happen is you've got to move from that disillusioned leader stage, that stage where while you may not be carrying the ball, you're on the sideline, you're still making all the calls. All the decisions have to go through you. And you've got to shift from that superpower of your own decision-making and start building a team of executives. You can't be the chief executive if there are no other executives. And so what happens is it feels awkward because it's not how we've led to date, right? We've probably prided ourselves on not being an executive, stuffy, terrible bureaucrats. But when you step into what the CEO role is really meant to be, when you get a couple reps under your belt and you build a team around you who's capable of carrying that decision-making weight with you and for you, it ignites just this tremendous transformation, both for your business. You'll find that the ability of the organization to scale just goes exponential. And you'll find that your joy in that process, the amount of energy that you have to expend in the process, your energy goes down, your joy goes up, your revenues go up, your profits go up, all because you were willing to stay through the bottom of that transition and make that change and transformation into the CEO title, the CEO role, and you become the CEO you've actually been meant to be all along.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I think that's a great point to kind of finish on, in that we do want to get to that point when we are a founder in our journey to be able to expand. If you're going into a business and you grow over time to where you now need to have people that are taking on the load with you to be able to get there and to not have to take all of the decision on yourself every single time. It is, like you said, such a transformational experience. Now, I do want to ask, did you finish the rest of that movie?
I did. I was able to watch it. I was able to watch. It took like a year and a half, right? So it was a very long time. But I saw the ending, and it's every bit as good as the. It's not even the end of the story, actually, for our founders. When I help, it's the biggest joy of my work is helping founders to get to stage 5.
Yeah.
I just absolutely adore it. I heard from one of the clients I worked with last year, and it's almost an apology, right? When they write to me afterwards, they're almost like, I feel I'm sorry, like, and they shouldn't be apologizing. It's exactly what we worked on. But it's like, I've never had more capacity in my life. Like, the business is growing. It's growing faster than it ever has. And I have never individually had more capacity to do what the business needs and what I love to do. And that's what happens. That's what keeps me going is things like that. And so again, for anyone who's there, who's feeling like Tom, shot down, chased by helicopters, it's okay, right? It's a normal stage that we all go through, and there is a way out. It's a very specific way. Bringing a guide in is a really important part of this process. But if you can get someone to help you find the way, to point you in the right direction, someone who's walked this road before and helped others walk this road, you can make that transformation relatively quickly. And it's words tend to fail to describe how big a transformation it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what is the name of your book?
Yeah. The name of the book is The Founder's Evolution. So we will talk in it are all 7 stages. So anyways, like, what are the first 2? What are the last 2?
Yep.
You'll have to read the book, I guess. I don't like to do that, but it's free. So it's not a big deal. Go download it for free. You can get it at scalearchitects.com/founders. And it's also super practical. We didn't get into a whole lot of the how-to in this, but in the book, in each chapter, I give 2, 3, up to 5 very, very specific how-tos. Do this, do this, do this, do this. And if you implement those, what you'll discover is there's a whole lot of stuff you actually don't have to do. If you just focus on those couple of areas, you can get so much time and energy back to do the couple of things you need to do. That's when your business takes off.
And for those that would be interested in finding out more about having someone come alongside them and assist them in that process, what's the best way for them to find out more?
Yeah, you can do it at the exact same place. So scalearchitects.com/founders. You can get a free copy of the book, and then right there you'll see an opportunity to schedule time with me. And if I'm a fit, we'll work together. If one of our scale architects is a great fit, you'll be able to work with them as well. But anyway, we can help you get from being stuck to getting unstuck and on your way to becoming a CEO and the visionary founder you were meant to be. It's our joy and our honor.
Perfect. Love it. Well, I want to ask you one last question that I like to ask all of my guests. If you were to be handed $1 million today, no restrictions attached to that, what would you do with that and why?
Yeah, I love this question. It's kind of like whenever my wife and I were having our first child, we went and did an Amazon gift registry for it. And it's like, you're walking, it wasn't Amazon, it was Target. So we're walking through Target, you get this little scanner. It's like, it feels like Oprah's there following you. It's like, I'll take this, I'll take this, I'll take this. That question kind of feels like that. There's some super, super exciting businesses that I work with. And so I would do a small business equity fund that we could provide our services basically at no cost. We'd cover our own cost and help folks scale up and do a mini private equity deal, but making sure that the founders stay in charge and that they maintain their majority stakes.
Love that. I love that answer. I mean, you're working with businesses already, and you can have that opportunity to come alongside them and assist them in a meaningful way, but also just to see them continue to grow and develop over time. So our guests, if they want to reach out to you, the advice is to go to the website, scalearchitects.com/founder, founder or founders?
Founders, plural. Both will get you there, but founders is the correct one.
Get to that, get the free book, schedule a time to meet with Scott, find out a little bit more information about him and his company and the work that they're doing, whether he's a fit or one of their other architects a fit. I would absolutely encourage you to do that. If not anything, read the book, get the information. Don't stop with 15 minutes left in your movie. Let's see it continue through the end. Now, Scott, thank you again for the time that you've had with me today. I really appreciate it and your insights and your experience.
Thanks, Zach.